Hello and welcome back to the Lowdown, everybody. The final one pre-Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. Pete Smith is here, joining myself and Mikey. How are we doing, Pete?
Yeah, very good. Very excited for Christmas.
Yes.
Loads of football.
Good.
To get stuck into, isn't it?
Millwall teetering on the edge of potential automatic
just
promotion as well.
threatening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very,
Still
very
in the
exciting.
hunt.
Still in the hunt. Mikey, you saw a thrilling game involving your side on Monday as well.
Yeah, Monday night.
That was a Christmas treat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Still not quite over it. Still can't quite make head or tail of it.
Yeah. Have you worked out the formation yet?
Sorry?
What actually formation?
Not really. I was looking, we'll get onto that in a bit. Actually, we'll get onto that. I was reading it earlier. I was like, maybe 3 changes throughout the game. It just felt quite chaotic in the second half. I'm not really sure it had that much to do with the shape, to be honest. It was good
we're
fun.
hoping that this shoot's not going to be too chaotic, but there is a lot to cover, guys. Today we are grading every Premier League club's start to the season. It's kind of like a mid-season report, if you will. Let's kick off with Arsenal in first. Mikey, I think it's fair to say that they've had a very, very solid start to the season. I think their performances have should have yielded even bigger gap, I would argue.
Yeah.
But in the last couple of games, there's been a little bit of weakness maybe spotted and a little bit of nerves maybe is the better word.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's a little bit harsh because this is still an Arsenal team that has been pretty ravaged by injuries this season, and yet they are still, I think, comfortably the best team in the division. Of course, they had that wobble at Aston Villa, but that was a last-minute goal they conceded. You could say the same thing about Wolves. They won with a last-minute goal, but I think they deserved to beat Wolves. They've got a great Champions League record as well. And when you look at the table, when you look at the underlying numbers, yeah, still comfortably the best in the league. Has their attack been as good as Man City's now after 16 games? No. But their defence is by far the best in the league by a country mile. They've conceded 10 goals. That's actually more than they should have conceded according to expected goals against, which just goes to show that despite the injuries to Saliba and Gabriel, Arteta has coached, one of the best defensive teams we've seen probably in the Premier League era. So yeah, I would give Arsenal an A star. I don't think I could. We could go any lower than that. Obviously, they wouldn't. Given their performances, they'd hope to be more than 2 points ahead of City at this stage. But I still back them to win the league. I think City have been amazing. Foden and Haaland are probably the two form attackers. Haaland certainly is the form striker in Europe. Foden,
Dominic Calvert-Lewin right now. Right?
Let's not divert for now. We'll get on to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. But yeah, I mean, they have been amazing, and Cherky's really coming into form as well. But I do still worry about that City defence a bit. And, if I'm going to back a team to grind out results between now and the end of the season to win the league, I still favour Arsenal.
Pete, are you...
Well, I just thought I wish Mikey was marking my homework when I was at school. A star for that. I think, look, Arsenal, we knew what they were going to bring to this season, and they have brought that, that consistency, that rock-solid defence. You mentioned the late goals against Villa, I think you mentioned, obviously Wolves at the weekend, which went in their favour. But, Liverpool beat them with a late goal. They've got that late equaliser against Man City at home. And it's been a bit like that, I think, because the defence has been so tough and tight. It's been quite close in games because the attack hasn't gone and finished teams off. So I was at Emirates on Saturday against Wolves. It didn't really create a lot. Okay, Wolves were sitting in and they were very well organised, worked really hard. Wolves probably their best performance, definitely under Rob Edwards, perhaps this season. But you could feel the tension in the Emirates because they knew with just that one goal, there was always that prospect that, like, the last 5 minutes of normal time, Wolves go, right, we're going to bring all our attackers off the bench now, we're going to throw something at it. And you could see the Arsenal players, that nervousness crept into them as well. So I think for Arsenal, it's just, if they can get that attack going as well, then I think rightfully they would pull away and look more like the deserved sort of leaders that they really are the best team, I think. But that attack just hasn't given them made the cushion that they deserve.
It does feel like there is a lot of tension around Arsenal, understandably from their fan base, and whether that's going to sort of translate onto the players and onto the pitch and through to Arteta. They are frothing at the mouth for some sort of trophy to signify all the progress they've made, and they have been a phenomenal side. I think they've looked even better in the Champions League as well, especially when you consider that they played Atletico Madrid and Bayern Munich. But I just think they'll be almost a little bit disappointed to not have a bigger gap on the basis of their performances so far this season. But I'm with Mikey. I think it's probably, they would have taken this at the start of the season. I'd probably go A star as well. Are you thinking more A?
Yeah, I thought
B plus, you know.
Wow, hard. That's so hard.
6 out of
Premier
6
League
in the
leaders.
Champions League.
This weekend,
2
Dougie,
points
Man
clear.
City will go top of the Premier League if they
Arsenal
win their
can
game
respond.
before Arsenal respond.
Yeah.
So for the next 2 game weeks, Man City have the chance to go top of the table and then put the pressure on Arsenal.
Okay, well, the Arsenal
is a
fans will
team
be
that-
in the comments, Pete, and they'll be like, wait for Man City. Better be a C for them.
If you can play 55 minutes at Stamford Bridge against 10 men and don't win the game, I don't think you still get top
Yeah.
marks.
Fine. Okay. A.
Yeah, okay.
Talked you
A.
down. I've talked you
I
down.
don't know if we can give an A star for anyone.
Oh,
in the
I know
league.
one
We're not
team
giving an
coming
A
up.
star.
Oh, I know one
I
team
think
coming
Dougie
up.
might have.
Oh right, yeah, true. Yeah, maybe.
Let's stick with A for now. I mean, the comments I can already read are pretty red hot right now. Let's move on. We're doing it in alphabetical order, by the way, rather than table order. But second in this list, but third in the Premier League, are Aston Villa. Kind of remarkable after a winless first 5 games of the season. They've won 10 of their last 11 games. The only time they failed to win was that 2-0 loss at Anfield, where they really played into Liverpool's hands. Bizarre tactics from Emery on that occasion. But otherwise, they can't really be faulted. I think their performance levels, in contrast to Arsenal, have been way more inconsistent. And there were long patches of this season where they were winning games and not playing particularly well. At the moment, it does feel like a lot of their attacking returns have really started to elevate. Watkins has shown more glimpses of going back to his previous best. I think Morgan Rogers has had an exceptional last month or so. Daniel Marlon, Emi Buendia chipping in as well. But then their defence has kind of had a little bit more of a drop-off in the last couple of weeks. So a strange team to work out. And, you know, Aston Villa fans will be bored of hearing this, but their underlying numbers are really quite troubling. To be totally honest, they've got a very difficult run of fixtures coming up with Man United, Chelsea and Arsenal. So we'll see whether this unlikely title challenge sort of continues. But for now, Pete, I mean, they were aiming for top 4 this season and a deep run in the Europa League, and both look very possible.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, that very rocky start, you mentioned no win in the first 5. And at that point, it looked like almost crisis point, wasn't it, really, in terms of Emery and the direction it was going in and what they could actually achieve this season, whether they could back up the encouragement from last year. But, you know, fair play to Emery, because it looks like he's figured it out and figured out how to address that. And, like, they're on, like, best ever runs in the Premier League for wins and results so far, Aston Villa. So, yeah, absolutely fantastic return. And a shout out to Buendia, actually, because I think in the summer we were speaking about him as a potential departure from there and looking at him going much further down either the table or maybe even to the Championship. But he's been sensational the way he's come back, you know, after that long-term injury to be delivering for them in big moments. I think it's fantastic to see him having those celebratory goals and moments. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, Mike, I suppose the question for them is, I don't know whether they can, but do you think January could be quite big for them? Because Harvey Elliott looks like they don't want to pay that fixed fee that they have to do if he plays a certain amount of games. Jadon Sancho's not really had a look in. Evan Gessen's made very little impact. Do you think this is the time for Aston Villa to try and strike?
Potentially, but then I don't. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Given that they've, you know, ideally, I think Emery would have been able to retain Rashford and Asensio from last season, and clearly Sancho and Elliott just don't tickle his fancy. I think it's going to be difficult in January to find the exact attackers that Emery actually wants. I think the question that I have is that, yes, okay, last couple of games, Ollie Watkins has looked a bit better, but overall his underlying stats are quite concerning this season. They're the kind of numbers that you tend to see, like, you know, when a striker is beginning to age out, you know, when their shot numbers are coming really far down, when they're not taking up as many good positions. Now, you could put that down to Villa's overall play. Of course, you know, we've spoken a lot about how Emery was literally instructing this team to shoot from distance game after game after game. So I think that might be a mitigating circumstance. But I do think, especially without a clear backup to him aside from Marlon coming on every now and then in the centre forward position, I do wonder whether the striker position, whether they look at that in January, if there is a market opportunity. See, it's always going to be difficult in January, but certainly by next summer, I think no matter where Villa finish this season, if they want to keep up challenging for the Champions League year on year, I do think that maybe they need to start thinking about who eventually takes over from Watkins, because I am a little bit concerned by his form this season.
I think everyone is. I mean, England fans should be as well, because we need a fit and firing Ollie Watkins potentially for the World Cup to back up Harry Kane. In terms of a rating, guys, for Villa, B plus A minus is kind of what I'm thinking.
I'd say B plus, yeah.
B+?
I'd say B plus. I think, yeah, if their performances were like more consistent from the start of the season, if they hadn't, you know, scored one goal in their first 5 games, then I think you'd give them higher. It's amazing that they're somehow in a title race, but I realistically don't see them still being in a title race in a month's time.
Fair enough. Should we go with B+, Pete? You happy?
Yeah, I think I was leaning maybe around that mark. I just think you've got to be careful with recency bias while we're doing this, right? Because we're bouncing off the last couple of games or the run they're on, but let's not forget how bad those first 5 games were and how many more points they should have had on the board.
Absolutely. Fair enough. Let's go with B+. Let's move on to Bournemouth, currently in 13th. Strange season for them, Pete, because they were getting a lot of press and deserved press and praise for their start to the season. Really dropped off and then had that thrilling draw on Monday, as we already mentioned. Yeah,
exactly. This is exactly what I'm talking about, recency bias. So they went second when they beat Forest on October 26th. And, they've just plummeted down the table since then. 3 points from 7, seriously on the slide. And, when Man United were putting the goals in on Monday night, you think, this could be really bad for Bournemouth. Obviously, they fought back into the game really well. And Evan Nilsson, I think maybe that's been an issue for them. He was good last season for them and he's been on a real drought. Clivert as well. And Semenyo even had a bit of a dip, didn't he, after starting the season on fire. So, it's a tricky one to read, I think. I mean, but it's almost... They were punching above their weight, well, obviously massively punching above their weight when they're up in second, but we've almost got this feeling that because Iraiola's such a good manager and he's getting them up into these top 10 positions regularly and threatening those European spots, that's where they should be. But actually, there's lots of teams fighting for those places, and if you just come off that level a little bit, then you can come undone and start slipping down that table quite quickly.
Tyler Adams picking up a big injury.
Christie's
like a big
been out,
injury. Christie's been out as well. They are still bedding in a new defence, and as well as they started the season, that's still a lot of change. I don't think Juri Petrovic has really pulled up any trees in goal just yet as well. Speculation that Bournemouth might be looking to add in their goalkeeping department in January as well. I mean, Mikey, if you had to give Bournemouth a kind of grading on the start to the season?
Maybe a C, because I think... Okay, it's harsh given the amount of defensive outgoings they had in summer, but they recruited pretty well in that department. We talk about their forward line misfiring, but Krupi's had an amazing first debut season in the Premier League, been one of the best young players in the league this season. And Semenyo, I think, this is going to be a big loss. I do think he will leave in January, that release clause, given the amount of clubs that are circling around him.
And the size of clubs.
I think it's...
Man City, Man United.
We can debate who needs him most, but I think probably Tottenham. It's the perfect opportunity for him to leave, and I do think then we do see maybe a bit of a drop-off, because as much as he's gone through a bit of a dry patch recently, like we saw against United on Monday, all he needs is that one chance. There's not very many, certainly wingers in the Premier League, who they basically just need 1 or 2 chances in a game to score. Like, he has been so clinical this season, even when his underlying numbers, like his shots, his dribbles, they've all been down on last season. He's still produced in games. So are Bournemouth deserving of a top half finish? Yeah, probably. But I do envisage a bit of drop-off after Semenyo leaves.
Fair enough. Let's go with a C. Lots to get through. Brentford, 15th at the moment. They are 7 points clear of 18th place West Ham. I think on the basis of many people's, including myself's, predictions at the start of the season, I think they'll be absolutely delighted. I think Brentford fans quite like being underrated, going under the radar. That's how they do their business. That's how they progress players from, sort of unknowns when they sign them, or sort of recoup them, or sort of rebuild their reputations, like a Damsgaard or a Coyote, the way that he's gone forward as well. A lot of people, myself included, doubted the Jordan Henderson signing. I think that's been a really smart acquisition. They've had big wins against Newcastle, Man United, Liverpool. I think this is against expectations, which is, again, what kind of factors into this. I'd probably go with the B for Brentford. I don't think it could have gone all that much better, Pete.
No, I think you're right. I think if you look at the Brighton game, the Leeds game, where they conceded late goals, they'll just be kicking themselves, because that's probably what takes it down from an A for me. Is it just the last couple of weeks? There's been a couple of results where it's not quite. But you mentioned them there. They've had some massive standout wins, which I think is so important for Keith Andrews coming into that role to really show that he can. Continue the project that Thomas Frank had and make his own mark on it. To have those statement wins is so big for him in terms of everyone buying into him, the players and the fans as well. And, I've been really impressed with him. I've been down to quite a few of their press conferences and spoken to him and asked him about how he's finding that transition from set-piece coach to manager. And, there's no doubt it is a big step up. But this is, I think we're seeing what a well-run club Brentford is, all the staff around them, around the team, and the continuation they've been able to have from that Thomas Frank era has been really impressive, because I think you're right, Dougie. Lots of people were tipping them for a drop this season, not least because they've lost Mbuemo and Wissa. And Igor Thiago obviously missed so much last season with injury. Is absolutely flying up front for them. So clinical with his finishing. Yeah, there's a lot to like about Brentford, definitely.
Absolutely. Mike, are you happy with B for Brentford?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with them. I'm also happy. I backed them to stay up this season, but tentatively, because it was so hard to know what would happen with Keith Andrews. I wasn't necessarily backing Keith Andrews. I kind of thought, well, if it's going really badly, they might just have to take a punt on someone new and accept that that their faith in Keith Andrews was maybe premature. But been proven wrong there. I'm just trying just purely based on the fact that this is his first senior managerial role in football, and he's taking over Brentford in the Premier League after Thomas Frank. Probably the greatest manager in Brentford's history. Well, it's greatest manager since the Second World War, at least. I can't really think of a manager I guess maybe Arteta coming into Arsenal off the back of being Pep's assistant at Man City, but even then, it wasn't like he was taking over from Wenger. He was taking over from Emery, who had failed in the eyes of Arsenal fans. So yeah, it's such an impressive job that he's doing, and he just carries himself really, really well as well. He's super confident. He's got this Brentford team playing in a very functional way, and yeah, I think the fact that they held on to Damsgaard when Wisser and Mbeumo left was massive in the summer. He's just still their key player, isn't he?
He's been immense. Let's move on to so let's go with B for Brentford.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Brighton, who I'm watching this weekend against my side, Sunderland. Looking forward to that. Mm-hmm. Quite a difficult team, Mikey, to get a grip of this season. I feel like they've not really had a consistent run of wins to kind of garner a lot of attention, but they've kind of gone under the radar and just done what Brighton do, just continually pick up points and stay away from relegation with ease.
Yeah. Even when Brighton are disappointing at this point, it's because they're sitting 12th or 13th and they haven't won in 3 or 4 games. But I just think, again, speaking of young managers, Fabian Hürzeler has just been absolutely brilliant since coming in. We've seen a bit of a drop-off in performances from someone like Carlos Baleba this season. Mitoma's been out. Yeah, he's had to use a number of non-left wingers on the left wing in Mitoma's absence, and they still look pretty good. Welbeck has been brilliant once again. Shouts a month or 2 ago about him potentially sneaking into the World Cup squad next summer. Yeah, you never know. If he has a big second half of the season, I think his name will be up there again. I think Yankuba Minteh's been their star though this season. He's been absolutely brilliant. I've really loved watching him play in terms of his underlying numbers. He's up there with the best in the league. So I feel like, whereas last summer all the talk was about Baleba possibly going to Man United, £100 million price tag and whatnot, I wouldn't be surprised if Minter's the next Brighton player to be linked with a huge move away. I feel like he's not far off the kind of tipping point that we saw with someone like Semenyo at Bournemouth, where suddenly it was like, okay, this guy's one of the best attackers in the league. I think Minter just needs to put a few more chances away, and he's going to be at that level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's been immense once again. Pete, are you happy with B for Brighton?
Yeah, that's what I've got down. I think important thing for when we talk about Brighton, let's not forget this is a team who sold on so many top players. They've seen a lot of backroom staff and people from upstairs, really highly thought of move on to other clubs, probably
one in
mainly Chelsea. Yeah. But to have that consistency of, as you said, not really being on the brink of the relegation zone, being quite comfortable. Okay, they go on little runs where they look good and they get a few results together, and then it sort of slides away a little bit. But don't underestimate that going under the radar in the middle of the table. What a good job that really is for a club like Brighton, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I tipped them for 5th before a ball was kicked, which looks maybe a little bit over the top, but it was because I really liked the new signings. When we actually haven't seen that many of the new signings. Again, with Brighton, they're signing for 18 months, maybe even 2 years down the line. Like Watson hasn't really played, Kustelas, Coppola, etc. Who else was there? De Kuyper's starting to play a little bit more in the last few weeks as well. Boscagli's barely featured. So they have a very deep squad for whatever happens in the next few windows as well, because another season like this, like a lot of their players do really look like they've got top 6, top 8 potential. So there will be interest once again. But for now, good, solid season for Brighton. That is a B. Mikey, I'd be surprised if you're going to give Burnley a B.
Yeah.
It looks like with Leeds' kind of recent revival, they're in very real danger of kind of being the second team to be cut adrift quite soon.
Yeah, when you look at their defensive records, they maybe should even be closer to Wolves. But the thing is, they didn't have a terrible start to the season, but they've lost 7 games on the spin now. And before that, they were above Nottingham Forest. They were actually above Fulham as well. Like, they've both really pulled away, especially Fulham. And now, I think Scott Parker's got a really tough job on his hands. Bournemouth away next, then Everton at home, then Newcastle at home. Those are all actually, for one reason or another, like, they are beatable teams, or at least they are teams that you can take points off right now. But I think that's really crucial to them staying up. I think they've got to get points on the board like ASAP. They just have not been capable of putting away quality teams at all. So the only teams they've beaten this season are Leeds, Sunderland and Wolves. Wolves they beat away, so Leeds and Sunderland were at home, so they've still got to go to Elland Road. They've still got to go to the Stadium of Light. But I just do wonder with Burnley, I guess, whether, because they made a lot of new signings in the summer, a lot of them have been in that team. They've got a pretty settled starting 11, but I just feel like, whereas like Sunderland went and spent a lot of money and of course like took a lot of gambles on young players from abroad and gambled that they would settle in the Premier League quickly, and that gamble paid off. Burnley has feel like, I don't know, I think the only 2 players that they signed over the price of £15 million were Ugochukwu and Broja from Chelsea. Just think, I think there's just a lack of quality overall in that side. A team that absolutely smashed it in the Championship last time. I don't know what your thoughts are.
What are we thinking rating-wise, Pete?
Well, I'm thinking I'm probably going to give them a kinder score than Mikey is, because they got booed off against Fulham at the weekend. And Scott Parker spoke about that afterwards, and he said, look, 4 months ago, we were in the town square celebrating promotion back to the Premier League, and what a great season it had been. And it's only 4 months on, now they're getting booed off. I think it's almost like you just need to have to... What did you expect Burnley to do this season, right? So you mentioned the wins that they had there against those 3 teams are basically going to be their relegation rivals. So actually the wins they've had are really valuable wins because they've come against those teams. I think the problem is Sunderland is just like completely distorted what you think a promoted team should be able to do,
what we do
in the Premier League. This is it. It's tough. It's hard. You're playing against teams with vastly increased budgets than you, more experience in the top flight than you most weeks, and it just feels to me like you just got to keep that perspective. And ultimately, where did you expect Burnley to be at this stage of the season? Probably in the bottom 3.
I mean, 10 points isn't terrible. I just do look at some of those games, and it's just like although it's not necessarily the lack of wins they've had this season, it's the lack of draws. Like they've had one draw.
Sure.
Like basically they've lost every game. They've lost every game aside from 4. And I just think
D?
I would probably say D. I don't know if I can give above a D for anyone in the relegation zone aside from in exceptional circumstances.
I think you're probably right. They'll feel like they could have done more, but I just think it's
It feels a bit harsh, but so this show is harsh.
Life is harsh. Someone's got to get
the Premier League is harsh. It's a D for Burnley. Right, Pete, let's talk about Chelsea, currently in 4th. I think pretty solid campaign. There's been some ups and downs, a lot due to injuries, a lot due to suspensions, a lot due to kind of... But at the moment, it feels like kind of internally imploding almost. Well, not maybe that's a bit dramatic, but the Maresca quotes are definitely feels like a bit of a stick of dynamite at the moment into their season.
Yeah, definitely. There's some friction there, isn't there? I think it's safe to say. But you look, like just when they...
Would you agree that he's done a pretty solid job?
They're into the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup with that win this week. He's won the Club World Cup, won the Conference League, got them back into the Champions League. So... he's piling up silverware, and he's got them pretty much where they want to be in the league. But I think sometimes you just look at the performances, and they obviously went on that run of 4 without a win, didn't they? Which led to him then saying about how he'd had this worst 48 hours since he'd come to the club. It feels like it's a young team, and there's going to be inconsistencies. But we've all been brought up with Chelsea demanding victories and success, and obviously that was under the previous ownership. But it still carries through, and the fans still expect that level of success and deliverance in the league. And I feel like they don't really look to me any more like title challengers than they were at this stage last year. We're going into around Christmas time last year, they were up near the top. Maresca was playing down any talk that they were title challengers. I've been down to see them quite a few times this season. I remember the game where Wolves won at Stamford Bridge, and you're thinking there's no way this Chelsea team are going to challenge for the title. There's no way they can match the consistency of a team like Arsenal or the brilliance of a team like Man City who can go on a massive run. But what I think Maresca can do, and he can go head to head with good managers and get good results against the good teams, which puts you in a good place for winning silverware. And I think that's probably what we'll see from Chelsea this season, assuming that the waters don't get too choppy with Maresca and those people behind the scenes, that he does obviously take it through to the end of the season. I'd expect Chelsea probably again to be in the Champions League positions and probably pick up another piece of silverware, which, where they've come from, where they sort of ripped it all up and started again with the young players, it's probably a decent return again. But it's then that question of, can they then kick on? The big thing that's holding them back this season for me, as well as various injuries they've had, is the striking department, number 9. It just appears that Delap and Pedro and definitely Gui are just not going to score the goals that they need them to score this season in the Premier League. So, I don't know if that comes onto their agenda in January, if they've got wriggle room to do that, but that feels like the obvious weakness, really.
It's an interesting one, because I think, I agree with you. Results have been pretty solid across the board, but do they feel any closer to a Premier League title or a Champions League title? I know they beat Barcelona, to be fair, but then to go and lose momentum in their last few Champions League games, and drop points against Qarabag, lose to Atalanta, and then it feels like, despite an amazing performance in that Arsenal game with 10 men, the gap to them and Arsenal and City does feel still pretty sizable. And would any manager have got them that much closer with the composition of this squad? I'm not totally sure, to be honest.
Mikey,
and with the standard of signings that they make every year, and the age of the signings, they're always 2 years down the line. And there are players right in this team right now that are Premier League title winning quality, like Caicedo, Cucurella, I'd argue Enzo Fernandez, Palmer. There are players that are ready to win big things right now. And I do feel like their transfer policy, which isn't set by Maresca, holds them back a little.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mikey, obviously Palmer's not been there for most of this season, really, with those injuries. So how much does he change the story for them going into that second half of the season?
Yeah, potentially. But then we forget, it's easy to forget Palmer had a relatively quiet second half of the season last year, certainly in the league. So I don't think we can pin everything on him. He's an amazing player to watch. He's a maverick. Even when fit, is he as important to Chelsea as Caicedo is? I'm not totally sure. I guess they have more top quality backup to Caicedo, at least in terms of the way that they can set up that midfield to mitigate him not being there, whereas Cole Palmer, because of his kind of all-round skill set, is pretty difficult to replace. So I think, Cole Palmer obviously makes a massive difference, also makes a big difference to whoever's playing up top, just to have him behind them. As for Maresca, I don't know. I just feel for anyone who's ever been in charge of Chelsea ever, to be honest, because it's a difficult one to navigate, isn't it? It's a really difficult job in terms of the club's transfer policy. You don't know exactly what kind of the makeup of your squad is going to be season on season. In terms of getting on side with the fans. If Maresca hadn't won the Club World Cup, I think he would be under pressure at Stamford Bridge right now, because Stamford Bridge doesn't really care how you play. You just have to win, and you have to win trophies. That's basically the only thing that Chelsea fans care about. So I think he's got a lot of credit in the bank from what he achieved last season, but on the basis of the performances this year alone, it's a tough one, because all you need to do is have a couple of poor results and things start going against you. That Arsenal performance feels like a long time ago now. Even though it was only 2.5 weeks ago. So I do feel for Maresca. I think no matter what happens, I imagine he will still be in charge come the end of the season. Maybe, depending on where Chelsea end up, how they do in Europe, maybe there'll be a bit of rethinking, depending on if he's still getting on with the hierarchy at that point. But I think he'll make it through to the end of the season. I think overall he's done a really good job there.
Great.
I would maybe, I'd probably say B. We're giving out a lot of Bs, but
a lot of teams having pretty solid seasons.
Yeah, I think they'd be. They have had some. In the big games, they have had some great results. So I look back to the Liverpool game really back in September. I know Liverpool haven't been at it this season, but they were far from pushovers against Chelsea, and I think Chelsea were better than them in every aspect of the game then.
Let's go with B. Right, moving on to Crystal Palace, where we've got loads of teams to cover. Crystal Palace are 2 points off fourth place Chelsea, with a very, very small squad. I think it deserves massive, massive respect. There were rumours yesterday that Oliver Glasner is potentially going to leave at the end of the season. There is talk about Jose Bordalas coming in. That's quite a terrifying prospect if I was a Crystal Palace fan, to be totally honest. Bordalas plays some of the most agricultural football in the entirety of Europe. It's a big, big change from Oliver Glasner. He has been successful with it, but I would be concerned that would be a step backwards stylistically for sure. They do need to definitely improve the squad or just thicken it out in January, or Glasner needs to trust his bench a little bit more. We've seen a little bit more from Uche, particularly in the Conference League over the last few weeks. Walter Benitez has played a little bit more there as well, but they didn't have a massive summer. Jeremy Canvo's barely played. Borna Sousa's barely played. They need more bodies in there as well, especially with Mark Gehi's future a little bit uncertain. But to be in that reckoning for Champions League football at the moment whilst playing in Europe, I think this is a really solid season so far from Palace. I'd give this an A.
I would definitely give it an A.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Everyone happy?
Yeah. I was just going to say, agricultural football. I've never heard that before. Agricultural football as like a
very
synonym
stripped-back,
for
basic,
defensive.
Not like one of the lowest percentage levels in the entirety, percentage of possession in the entirety of Europe. Getafe over the years, and
I mean the Spanish Dutch.
Yeah, exactly. Brutal side to play against as well. Very aggressive. That would massively concern me, but that's for another day. For now, you're getting an A. Right, let's move on to Everton. Pete, they are 9th at the moment. Strange season in many ways. They've had some amazing results, maybe a little bit of inconsistency, but given the fact that they've had some really difficult years in the last few years, given the fact they're moving into a new stadium as well, I think they'll probably be pretty happy with 9th.
I think they'll be excellent. I think David Moyes is doing a fantastic job up there. I was lucky enough to go and interview him earlier this season and talk to him about it.
How are the vibes?
It's good. It's just the experience that you can just feel when you speak to him and when he's talking to the press. He's seen it all before, you know. It's well, I don't know if he's seen one of his own players slapping one of his other players, but he has now. But yeah, you're right. You know, these transitions to new stadiums, we've seen it before. It's not always plain sailing. They've lost a couple of games now, but they had a good start there, and I think they got them up and running. The feel-good factor within the team. Grealish obviously rejuvenated, saying how much he loves playing for David Moyes. Dewsbury Hall rejuvenated, saying how much he loves playing for David Moyes, and going on a fantastic run of goal involvements as well, didn't he? Again, a bit like Chelsea, they just need a striker. You know, they must be tearing their hair out when Tiano Barry and Better missing these chances, and I know Barry got that goal and he was celebrated so happily to finally get his Premier League goal.
I really like Barry.
Look,
he's not done the business
there's
so
been
far,
a lot,
but there's a lot of promise.
They've had a good start to the season. It should have been a lot better because they passed up a lot of chances, that team. But I think this is, for everything that, for all, why West Ham fans wanted Moyes to move on, we're seeing again, the quality that he's got and his ability to build a team that can navigate. Everton, how many years in a row are we talking about them being relegation candidates, hovering above there, the crisis, the fear? It's just not there now. Yeah.
It's fantastic. And Mikey, there's a big potential return in January as well with Jared Branthwaite.
Jared Branthwaite, yeah. I think that makes a massive difference to them as well.
Do you think that's Michael Keane dropping out? I think he's had a pretty
potentially.
Solid start to
I think Branthwaite will have to earn his place again for sure. But I just think having him there, because otherwise there's no one else. Like they've had Tarkowski and Michael Keane, I think, have partnered each other in all but one game. And I think it was Jake O'Brien stepping in for one of them in the other game. They're so thin on the ground in defence. It's a bit ridiculous. I think that was major criticism from the summer, is that you just didn't invest anywhere near enough in the defence. But having said that, their investment in this attack has paid off. It has paid off. And it's an interesting one, isn't it, with the Moyes comparison with West Ham, because you look at West Ham now and they still have some pretty good quality going forward. It's just unfathomable that a squad containing Lucas Paquetá and Jared Bowen could go down this year. It's just absolutely unbelievable. And then you look at Everton, and it's a similarly kind of, you've certainly got good quality in attack, but players that you don't know, maybe they don't gel together. But Dewsbury Hall, Grealish, and Ndiaye, almost on individual quality alone, just seem to make it work. They just seem to have a really good understanding. I think certainly like credit Moyes with that 100%, but I do think those three, a lot's down to them. I think James Garner's had an amazing season as well. Once again, I think he's quietly been one of the best players at that club. Did a great job on Semenyo as well when he played at right back a few weeks ago.
We think B plus then?
Maybe, yeah, I don't mind B or B plus. We could say B plus just to be different. I do think on Barry and Beto, I do reckon second half of the season we see better numbers from them. Like I feel like you could only pass up so many opportunities. Like they're both underperforming XG by so much. Like I do have faith that especially the Barry signing will come off eventually because he was so good in La Liga last year.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go with B plus for Everton. Why not? We've got loads of teams still to get through. Let's talk about Fulham. They only won 2 of their first 9 league games of this campaign. They sat 17th at the end of October. My friend Jack Collins, who you might well know from different YouTube shows, etc., was legitimately thought there was a decent chance that they were in this relegation battle for the entirety of the year. I don't think he necessarily thought they were going to go down, but he was incredibly nervous. Since then, though, there's been 4 wins in 7 games. They beat Burnley at the weekend. That actually got a little bit nervy. Prior to that, they lost to Palace, where they probably deserved to get a point at the very least. That amazing game against Man City, where they showed so much spirit there. They beat Sunderland at home as well, which feels like a fairly good result at the moment as well. There's some players in red-hot form in this Fulham side. It's not normally the players you tend to mention. It's the likes of Harry Wilson, probably one of the form players in the Premier League alongside Foden, Calvert-Lewin at the moment. It's Samuel Chukwueze as well, who had a really difficult stint at Milan, but on the basis of his Villarreal sort of stint there, always looked like he could do damage in the Premier League. So tricky, very two-footed, very explosive in terms of a standing start as well, and he's had a massive, massive impact as well. Anthony Robinson's now back fit, so 14th feels like kind of the lowest that I think Fulham will probably go this season. I think they can kind of look upwards and hope to get in that sort of area between 8th and 10th maybe. I mean, it's going to be an absolute maelstrom in there in terms of every side kind of aiming for that area and every side feeling like they could do it. But Pete, I think I'm fairly positive about Fulham.
Yeah, I wouldn't really worry about them being in sort of that relegation battle or slipping down into that area because they've got players like, as you mentioned, like Wilson, who've got enough quality in them that when they have their little purple patches through the course of the season, they've got enough quality to get the results for Fulham and sort of lead them to those results. Smith Rowe as well and Iwobi. Chukwueze, I've been really impressed with him in the last few weeks. You mentioned him. Jimenez has had to do a lot of heavy lifting with Muniz out injured. So, you know, there's that strain on him and you know, how long can he keep delivering up front for them? But look, I just feel that with Fulham, there's a little bit, though, they're coming to a point, there's obviously this talk about Marco Silva's contract and what's next
Harry
for
Wilson's
them.
also out of contract.
And you know, how do you make that step up as Fulham? You know, how do you make that push towards the European spots? Over the last couple of seasons, they've got really good points totals in terms of their own history as a club. And Silva's been keen to point that out, that he's pushing, but it's you can only take it so far, I think, and without a big shift in terms of signings or something like that. So that's how I feel about looking at Fulham's season. They've had some bad runs, they've had some good runs, they've had some bad performances, good performances. They're sort of, as you say, 14th in the table, and it's sort of where they are really as a club at the moment. They're trying to push up into that top 10 and towards the European spots, but it's not quite there for them at the moment.
Yeah, I wonder whether Crystal Palace would want to talk to someone like Marco Silva. I don't know whether you leave Fulham and go to Crystal Palace. Is that big enough of a leap? But Crystal Palace, in terms of recent history, have been competing in Europe and kind of been where Fulham want to be. So, yeah, maybe that's someone to look at as well. I mean, Mike, if you had to give them a grade, I'm aware we're giving out a lot of Bs, but it feels a bit harsh to go that much lower for Fulham.
Yeah, then maybe a C or C. Yeah, C. C's fine.
Should we just go with C?
I think they are, like, compared to last season, I think they aren't as good. They have dropped off a bit in terms of performances. So, yeah, I'd happily give them a C.
Okay, let's do C. Next up is Leeds, currently in 17th. They've got 5 points, though, from their last 3 games. A win versus Chelsea, draws with Liverpool and Brentford. They'd only taken 4 points from their previous 8. Daniel Farke changed system into a 3-5-2 and played Okafor up front with Calvert-Lewin, and it's led to Calvert-Lewin's best scoring run for years and years. And he had been kind of written off by many people, myself included, as a bit of a spent force in the Premier League. But 4 goals in his last 4 games. Very impressive stuff as well. I think someone like Gudmundsson, I know he scored that pretty comical own goal at the start of the season, but I think he's been really, really good as a left wing back as well. I think the composition of Longstaff and Stack in midfield as well, and Tanaka started playing a lot better as well. it feels like Leeds now have a fighting chance of staying up, Mikey.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think it depends on whether West Ham can turn it around under Espirito Santo, because as alluded to before, like they do just have more quality. But I think system-wise, I think Leeds have been better. I think even at the start of the season, you saw that the opening game of the season against Everton when they won, it took a penalty to win, but they looked so up for it. And I think Elland Road obviously has a big part to play. But I think if they can sustain that great form at home, or sustain some great form at home second half of the season, then I would probably back them over West Ham. Just kind of on that alone, they're just so up for it when they play at home, especially in those nighttime games.
What sort of grading were we thinking for Leeds? I found this quite difficult.
Yeah, I put them around a C mark, but it feels like it's a C with there's
B potential.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sort of thing might get written on my report card. I felt like you looked at those games, Man City, Chelsea, then Liverpool, wasn't it? And you thought that's a real and at that point there was talk about Farke and his job and whether they were going to stick with him, and of course his record in the Premier League's not good, and did we see this all coming because he takes the team up and then they struggle. It's almost like those three really tough fixtures have given them the hope, because we say we'd change the system, but that comeback draw against Liverpool, Ellen Road was rocking, wasn't it? And suddenly you saw that connection there between the fans and the players and this project, and you think, well, actually, if they can bottle that and use that over the next few weeks, then maybe the potential's there. Because it's a weird one, Leeds. You look at the underlying numbers, and defensively,
really solid. Yeah.
Even in some attacking stats as well, they look really good. But defensively, they're right up there. But it's just not played out that way. So you feel like if he can just tweak those things, and maybe he has done that with the system, then maybe he can find a little formula there to get them going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're 11th for XG created, 9th for XG against, should be 10th by expected points. So if they keep that level of performance going across the season, you would, on the basis of that, expect them to maybe pull away from relegation. So I think C with B potential feels like a good spot for Leeds. Right, I don't think we can probably give a C to Liverpool. Currently 7th. They are 2 points behind 4th place Chelsea. So they're still in the hunt for Champions League football, but they're now 10 points below Arsenal. They're 13th for goals conceded. They spent a world record amount this summer. Obviously, Diogo Jota's death is going to sort of hang over their entire season, and it doesn't feel right to really hammer them in those circumstances. But it can't be painted as anything other than a really disappointing season. There have been the odd very good result, particularly in the Champions League. Like they beat Real Madrid at home. They beat Inter Milan away. But the level of consistency that you'd hope for a side that have invested this much money, that were the reigning champions, just hasn't been there, Mikey, at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, their most kind of solid win of the season was that 2-0 win at home to Villa, which weirdly was Villa's only game they didn't win on that run since whenever it was mid-September. And even then it was Liverpool fans were quite excited about that win because Liverpool just kind of looked quite functional. It's not like they blew Villa away. They took advantage of the massive gaps that Villa left in midfield. So it seems kind of strange that Liverpool just looking ordinary in some games is a real positive. Yeah, I just think in terms of a title defence, it's hard to give anything higher than a D. I think the last title defence, I remember getting this wrong, maybe was Liverpool in 2021, but then you had like Van Dijk out for most of the season. You had Joe Gomez out for a lot of that season as well. Obviously, like you say, difficult circumstances and the Salah slot situation, do you
think that's now
threatened to derail things a bit? I mean, I think Slot played it really well by sticking him back in the team on the weekend. I feel like now I'm pretty confident Salah will be there till the end of the season. I just wonder whether maybe the summer is, whether the club decides actually now's the time to cash in on whatever the Saudi Pro League want to pay, because regardless of whatever he's said in the last couple of weeks, he has dropped off majorly in terms of his underlying numbers, and
we
know
in a good
obviously
position to ask for a lot of money though, given
of course
2 years left on his
contract. I mean, whichever club,
whichever
club in Saudi, isn't going to care about what his shot numbers are like in the Premier League, even at that at a career low. Whereas Michael Edwards does, he is
and
concerned.
Michael McCubbin does as well.
Like Liverpool are not going to no matter how big a legend he is. If you're showing over the course of a season that you're like just not playing at the level that you used to, then yeah, they'll move you on. But like, I don't know, there's other factors as well at play. Like I think the system just isn't set up as well for Salah anymore, but they did spend loads of money on players who are going to take the mantle off him. So I feel like maybe next summer is the natural time for them to part ways. But yeah, I'll give them a D. We're talking about Salah lows. We haven't even spoken about the defence, which has been the most concerning thing.
They may well look to address that in January as well. But let's give them a D. There's plenty of other clubs to cover. Pete, let's talk about Man City. Just 2 points behind Arsenal. I think on the basis of their performances, particularly in the early parts of this season, don't think many people saw it being this tight in mid-December or late December, I should say. So they do deserve quite a lot of credit for putting this run together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's lost 2 of their first 3, didn't they? And sort of been on the back foot for most of the time since then. I think they've had a couple of runs of performances where you think, they're starting to look like they're getting it, and then they get a result which sort of set them back again. And maybe we'll just see how long they can sustain this obviously really busy period coming up. But if they can just keep that form going over this Christmas period, they could find themselves in a fantastic position in early January, and we know what they're like in the second half of the season when they do get going, sort of historically. Yeah, to see Foden sort of looking like he's getting back to himself, despite what Pep Guardiola thought of his performance at Crystal Palace. Obviously, just Haaland in absolute beast mode. He had 2 shots at Palace and scored 2 goals. Obviously 1 penalty and then that amazing header. He's so clinical, and I guess a lot rests on his. If something was to happen to him with Marmoush out of action at the moment as well. So. Yeah, I think it's there for City. You can see it evolving, but it's interesting or just staggering, really. They're so close to the top of the table, given this still feels like a work in progress for them. So
absolutely, and I think there's more to come from a lot of players in the second half of the season as well, like Savio, Bob, Marmoush. None of them have scored yet. Sure. There's only 2 players that have scored more than 2 league goals. So and Rodri might come back at some stage as well. What level he comes back at? Will he be the Rodri of old this season? Probably not, given the amount of game time he's missed. But that's an exciting prospect as well. I still think Arsenal will eventually win this league title. But credit to Man City, and I don't say that with total confidence. I think it's fair to say. In terms of their season so far, I think given where I thought they'd be at, I'd probably going A-, to be honest. I think it's been solid.
Yeah. A- or B+. Yeah, I don't mind that. I think Haaland had to do a lot of heavy lifting, didn't he, before Foden really kicked into gear. Don't even mention Doku yet, but like he's been brilliant as well. So there have been some really bright moments with City. Yeah, I guess it's just the defence still feels a bit like a work in progress, but they're
looking for a defensive rebuild.
Well, yeah,
Mark Gehi.
Yeah, Mark. I mean, that would be an amazing signing for them to get ahead of Liverpool on a Gehi signing.
I don't think you win the title with Nunes at right back, do you?
And
but look, I think Nico Riley's been fantastic.
He's been great.
The result for me, going winning at Bernabeu. Yeah, it just feels like they just turn up and beat Real Madrid on their own patch, and that shows
played pretty well in that game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the potential of this team, and with Pep in charge, obviously. So, don't write them off.
Do not write them off. Okay, let's go with A- for now. Mikey, let's talk about the most mental team in the league, probably, in Man United.
Yeah.
Definitely, if you can tune into any team this season, I'd probably watch Man United. They are the most fun and probably the most dysfunctional as well, but very, very entertaining. That game on Monday, and that's not the first time. You're thrilling going forward this year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say every single game United are going to be the most entertaining. There have been some quite dull games as well.
Everton game.
Everton game. I mean, actually, to be fair, the Everton game, United created a lot of chances, but as you should against a team who are down to 10 men for the vast majority of the match. Think back to the Forest game, which United did win. Did draw 2-2 in the end. I thought that was a pretty poor performance going forward. The Spurs game as well, good moments, but United's still very much a work in progress. But I think there is a reason why Amarim's still in this job, and that they kept faith in him in those first kind of 5 weeks of the season when United were, looked, it was a disaster. It was, it felt like a real crisis. The underlying numbers in those games still suggest that there were better things to come. And now we're in December, and United have scored as many goals as Arsenal. Only City have scored more than them. They're now third in the league according to expected goal difference. So, the chances that they're conceding versus the chances they're putting away. Obviously, that's only, a certain amount of the story, because XG only, doesn't really take into account game state and when you're chasing games and whatnot. But at the same time, compared to last year, United are taking the lead a lot more in games. They're taking the initiative a lot more. They're just struggling to put games to bed as much. And I think that's the one real sign of positivity. And it's not necessarily, all down to, it's not necessarily, all the faults aren't necessarily all Amorim, all the great things aren't all necessarily Amorim. I think that the investment in the summer in the attack is probably the best we've seen at United in maybe a decade. Like, I think that's the signings of Mbeumo, the signing of Cunha, the fact that, playing alongside those players in this system has given us Mount's best form since probably his second to last season at Chelsea, so 2022, and yet Bruno's still like the key man as well. I think the last couple of months he's really stepped up. So yeah, funny old season for United. Defensively look like an absolute mess still, but again, Lamon's being in goal, although he's not like, I wouldn't even say he's like top 5 keepers in the league. He is certainly a lot better than what United had before. So yeah, I think like I would maybe give United a B or a B minus. I mean, 6th in the league is about as high as anyone had them this season, to be fair. So, like Amorim, I don't know, he's a funny guy. Like, I mean, his press conferences, I don't think help him out because he just seems so stressed, as many managers would be in this job. But yeah, I think
week about some of your academy graduates.
Yeah,
as well,
not great.
Really
but then he goes and plays Cobby, gives Cobby his most significant minutes in the league, and we probably see Cobby's best performance for United in about 18 months, even if it was just a 30-minute spell. And the fact that he, changed to a 4 at the back system against Bournemouth as well is, it's kind of promising. But yeah,
I don't know. I feel like B minus feels the upper limit of where I'd go. Pete, I was actually more tempted by C plus.
I think they're probably the hardest team in this league to grade, to actually pin it down, because
they do just baffle.
Yeah,
as soon as you've got like 2 good games in a row, and then it's just some dreadful performances in there.
100%. And you mentioned like blowing Leeds, like Bournemouth, Spurs, Forest. They should have more points on the board than they do. Really, it feels like they've dropped quite a few.
I mean,
points
Bruno Fernandes missed 2 penalties at the start of the season that probably would have won United 6 points as opposed to 1.
Especially given the fact you're playing 1 game a week as well. I actually thought, I didn't know the table was going to be this tight, and 6th did feel like the upper limits of your achievement, but I felt like it could be a more solid. I'd have more belief that you could finish 6th than I do right now.
So you're level on points with Liverpool, right? And just ahead of them on goal difference, I think.
Goal difference,
which
just
matters.
behind Chelsea and Palace,
But, if we're giving Liverpool a D, then it feels like Man United pretty much a C based on expectations going into the season.
But do you think this season in the league, United have been worse than Chelsea? Like,
probably.
Do you think?
Probably.
Yeah. With a far inferior squad.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you have a far inferior squad to Chelsea?
I think so. I think
surely Chelsea would take a lot of your attacking players.
Chelsea would quite like to lit at the back, I would have thought.
Yeah, they probably would like to lit at the back. Yeah. I guess the Colwill injury changes things.
They take Bruno, they take Mbeumo, they'd probably take Cunha, they'd probably take Sesko.
I don't know. Chelsea fans would have something to say about you putting Bruno in that team ahead of Cole Palmer.
I would. You could play in a variety. I mean, they'd take him in the squad.
Yeah.
They'd be foolish not to. But
we do have a Chelsea fan behind the camera as well.
Let's go with Chelsea fans. Let us know. How many
I'd say. Shall we say C plus?
C plus.
Yeah, I think C plus is
good.
fine.
I think that's good. Okay, let's move on to Newcastle. I find this very difficult to grade. They have been very up and down, very inconsistent. Terrible away from home, I should say. Terrible at the weekend against Sunderland. Wasn't a brilliant game by any stretch of the imagination, but they really didn't show up. And the lack of pressing, the lack of energy in that side at the weekend, the reaction to it, I think it was all pretty deserved because it was pretty abject in your biggest game of the season. And that is now 10 league games without victory over Sunderland, which is a crazy statistic, given that for the vast majority of those seasons, they were significantly better than us as well. Their next 2 games are against Chelsea and Man United. I'm not sure there should be pressure on Eddie Howe. I'm not saying that whatsoever. And there has to be the caveats of Johan Visser hasn't really been fit to play any minutes so far this season, has only just come back. That was your senior striker signing to replace Alexander Isak. As bad as Alexander Isak has been at Liverpool, that doesn't take away from how good he was for Newcastle last year. That's still a huge absentee. I do want to see more from the likes of Anthony Gordon, particularly in the Premier League now. You're an England international. I think there's a very decent chance of you starting at the World Cup ahead of Marcus Rashford. I think anyone saying that now on the basis of their form over the last couple of months looks a little bit deluded. And everyone keeps on talking about how you've got 2 of the outstanding midfielders in the league, and yet there you are in 12th. So they should be doing better. I think they'll be pretty disappointed with how their season has gone so far. I couldn't go any higher than a C.
I think disappointed is an understatement, really, Dougie. I think there was again. I go back to it. Don't want to get bogged down in recency bias, but coming off that Derby defeat ahead of the cup game, which is tonight, Howe was grilled for like half an hour in the preview press conference for this game, for the cup game, about what had happened against Sunderland. And I think that's, yes, it's losing to Sunderland, but it's also this build-up, this feeling at Newcastle and around Newcastle for a long time, is that they've just come through a summer where Howe was basically running the whole show himself, trying to plug all these gaps where he's supposed to be taking a break, and he's trying to sort out all these transfers because they're missing the backroom staff that they wanted to be organising that structure. And then they come into the season and just so many games where they look off it, a bit lethargic, just not like we know that Eddie Howe's Newcastle are a massive team, a real threat when they're on it, when they come flying out the blocks, especially at St James's Park. But you see them go away from home, they just don't look like the same team. And, this was supposed to be the launch year, right? So they go and win the cup last year, the Carabao Cup. They get into the Champions League. They keep, which, ideally means that they keep the likes of Bruno. They hoped it was going to mean that they keep Isak. But you get loads of money for Isak, so you go and invest. And instead of that, you're looking at a situation where they're in the bottom half and they're really looking at what direction are we going in here? Where are we going? How can we actually improve on what we did last year when it was supposed to be sustained success for the foreseeable future? So, yeah, I think it's a club which... probably not crisis, but it's in a state of serious reflection at the moment about where they're going.
Absolutely. I think Newcastle fans, I think it's probably only fair that we point out that Liverpool and Hall have missed so many games this season as well. And when they have been fit, they have looked a lot better in general, but that weekend was hugely disappointing. Are we saying D?
Yeah,
I'd happily go D, yeah.
It's not coming from the Sunderland fan, okay. We're giving them a D.
You suggested it.
Did I say it originally?
Yeah.
It is coming from the Sunderland fan. I thought I said C. Okay. Let's go to Nottingham Forest. Now, this is a case of what a bizarre season, but recency bias and what's happened recently has just completely turned it around in most people's eyes. People forget they're on to their third manager of the year, but you look at Nuno's impact at West Ham, very minimal. You look at Dyche's impact at Nottingham Forest, it's been sensational. I think it's 7 wins in 12 in all competitions now. They've got a very decent chance of getting through to the next stage of the Europa League. And you look at, the performances of some players that were struggling under the previous management. Well, everyone was pretty much struggling under the previous management as well. There's been injuries for them to contend with. And yet they take on a Spurs side at the weekend who were coming into that with the small semblance of sort of momentum that they had. And they absolutely obliterated them. It was so impressive. And given the fact they've not had Chris Wood, given the fact that Gibbs White has struggled somewhat, this is a team kind of built around Elliot Anderson, and he's carrying them to safety, I would say. It's difficult to go too hot on their entire season, though.
Yeah.
I would probably still give it a C just because of the terrible start. Would you give them a B?
No, I'd give them. I think C is like.
Oh,
I think C is really.
Do you think
like,
that's quite
overly
generous?
positive? I just
We need to
think.
put one of our caveats on it.
Like, I mean, if you're onto your third manager by October, I think that's a sign that
Yeah, but they're in a great place now. I feel like if you assess where they are now, like you can say they've gone.
Yeah, they were challenging for the Champions League last year.
Where
Are they in a great place now? Where are they in the table?
They're 16th.
They're 16th at the table.
They're a great place in terms of what they're doing. The Olays are coming out as they're knocking the ball around Tottenham and winning 3-0 and absolutely destroying them. And you see that team, you think, wow, I was really impressed with them at the weekend.
They're good. I don't know. I don't want to just get carried away with their recent form because they were so bad at the start of the year. A team that were challenging for like top 4, top 5 last year.
Can you see Dyche allowing them to regress to those levels again? I just don't see it. I think he's cracked it.
So far. I don't know. I think it's been a good start with, a squad that is full of like top quality. Morgan Gibbs White, wanted by a lot of top clubs last year, wanted by Man City last year. Elliot Anderson is looking like £100 million midfielder. Callum Hudson-Odoi's in great form. I just think, they've had one of the best defences in the league last year. Like, I do think there's still been a big regression there to the point where they had to hire 2 new managers this season. I don't think they'd be any lower than they are right now with Nuno in charge, for example. So I feel like they've got a very roundabout way of just being like, just underperforming a bit this season in general.
So are you going with D?
No, I'll happily go like C-, but I think to give them a C where we've given other teams who are, I don't think you can say that Forest have had as good a season as Fulham, for example, and we've given them a C, even though they've also underperformed a little bit.
Let's go C-.
Yeah.
Let's go C-.
Can we just give them like a sticker of like keep at it?
We can give Sean Dyche an A. 100%.
Yeah,
we can give him an
Dyche for
A. He's done well.
Yeah, love it. Okay, let's move on to Sunderland in 8th. I think this is very difficult not to make this an A star, to be totally honest. On pre-season expectations, on the results, beating Newcastle, beating Chelsea, beating Bournemouth, drawing against Liverpool, drawing against Arsenal, an entirely new side, gelled so effectively already. And yes, it might be a difficult next few weeks with AFCON, but Sunderland are on 26 points. They need 14 points from 22 games to get 40. And I can't remember the last time a side was relegated with 38 plus. So Sunderland are safe and no one really expected it. I think I had them 17th before a ball was kicked. I think it's been sensational. I am biased though, so tell me if I'm wrong.
I mean,
yeah, better than this, does it?
Yeah, no, I can't remember a promoted team having this good a start. So yeah,
17 or 18 years ago, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I even think back to like Bielsa's Leeds a few years ago. They were great, but probably by points, not at this stage of the season. Like you say, like I can only think of like West Ham in 2003 going down with 40 points. So you guys fine. I mean, the next month will be obviously be telling with so many players out. But
who's your favourite player this season, if you had to pick one?
I mean, it's difficult to look past Granit Xhaka, but actually, I mean, he is. But I think Ronaldo's really gone under the radar as well. Very silly red card against Aston Villa, but he's been so solid. So solid. That warrior spirit. But unfortunately, he represents Mozambique. He represents Mozambique, so he won't be here for the next month, which is a shame. Right, let's move on to Spurs. Oh, my days. 11th, but only one win in their last 7 league games, which was that 2-0 win against Brentford in the Thomas Frank derby. No side in the top 14 has lost as many as their 6 games. Their underlying numbers are atrocious. I think this is a D again.
Generous as well, like it's given. I mean, actually, they were 17th last year, but it's just, I think I'm just so shocked at how
bad it's been.
Just how
11th feels very generous on the basis of their performances.
For sure. And I just think it's just I think it's the style of play for me as well. I just like I'm honestly so surprised that Thomas Frank came in and they went so they just look so out of ideas going forward. So yeah, I that's where I've been disappointed. I think not that I don't want to put like I don't really want Frank to be under pressure because I would like to see him given time at Spurs. And like Spurs fans feels like they're conflicted as well because obviously like style of play is such when results aren't going away it's such a big factor at Spurs in terms of like your rapport with fans. But yeah, like it. I would not have imagined it had gone this way when Frank came in the summer. Like I just thought he would have handled the pressure a bit better.
I think those attacking numbers would be much better if Kulusevski, Madison and Solanke were all fit and available for him. So let's not forget they've come out of the team. Yeah, I mean, how do we judge Spurs now? Oh, is there still a Big Six? Are they part of the Big Six now? Are they really one of those top teams in the league? Last season felt like just
Man United in the Big Six as well.
They're far down.
I mean, I don't think there is a Big Six.
How do we judge Tottenham? Like, where is this? If you look at that team, how many of those players would they buy again? Like really, like if you go through that team, yes, there might be. If Van de Ven, we'd keep him. But you could go through quite a lot of those players and think, actually, for all the fanfare they had when they brought them in, have they actually improved us? Have they made us better? Would we actually sign that player if he was playing for another team in this league? Yeah. And that's just what we've seen from them over the past couple of seasons. This Thomas Frank referenced it. They concede a goal and the whole team just, the way they deal with setbacks is just not good. The way they pass the ball is not good, going by their performance at the City ground. Terrible attacking metrics, but if you can't pass the ball into the final third, then you've not got a chance, have you? You go to Tottenham and you can hear the fans complaining about the sideways pass. It's always sideways. Why is it always sideways? And it just looks so pedestrian, especially in contrast to the way Ange, had them playing when he first come in. But we mentioned people like Sean Dyche and the impact that he's had at Forest when he's gone in. Okay, it's mid-season, but the impact that Frank's had it's not been good.
Minimal, very minimal. So we're going with D.
Happy with D? Yeah, happy with D.
Okay, let's move on to West Ham. Sorry, it's a little bit of a depressing end to the episode by the alphabet. It's not our fault. But West Ham currently 18th. They are 3 points from safety. Nuno has won 2 of 11 games since taking over. That's kind of gone under the radar as well. We talked about it earlier about the quality within that squad still. But I think there's a very, very real possibility that I think they've been in the league for the last 16 years. It could well come to an end. You look at the momentum behind Leeds right now, and West Ham, there's just been so many underperforming players for a number of years there. It maybe took far too long to settle on this kind of midfield balance, getting a bit more legs in there, which does seem to have improved them. Some of their centre-backs have consistently underperformed for a long time now. They tried to bring in a new goalkeeper. They've gone back to Areola. They haven't managed to have a successful striker since I was born. It just doesn't feel like a squad that could survive. Or, I mean, it feels like it could survive, but I just have no real nailed-on belief that it will survive now. I used to have 100% conviction that West Ham would just stay up on the basis of their player quality. Now I'm like, it could very easily happen. It feels sort of 50-50, maybe 60-40 they will go down.
Yeah, harsh on Mikel Antonio, by the way, that.
But is a right back. D- for West Ham?
Yeah, probably.
That's about right, yeah,
and it feels, the thing is, it does slightly feel like it's been coming for a while now. Even Moyes' final season, they finished well, but the style of play really did take a big hit in his final year, and it just hasn't recovered. They've tried, well, I mean, I don't know, like they haven't tried anything particularly radical in terms of managerial appointments. I mean, I guess aside from Graham Potter, but Graham Potter didn't work. But when you look at like who they've moved, who they've had in since Moyes, it's like Lopetegui, okay, like as close as you can get to Moyes in La Liga. Yeah, obviously Graham Potter just didn't work out at all, but at least tried something. And then Nuno now, it's like, yeah, I don't know. I thought maybe he'd work it. Maybe he will as well, because it's still very tight down there. We speak about Burnley's chances of like maybe if they can turn a few losses into draws, and suddenly they're back in with a shout of staying up. So West Ham have tons of quality, especially in forward areas. Kudus, like probably one of the bright spots in Tottenham's season. If they had him in the team, maybe we'd be looking at something different. But yeah,
D- for now. Okay, Wolves, F probably. I mean, it's harsh on the players because they've kind of been let down by, I would say, the club, and it's harsh on Rob Edwards. It's particularly harsh on Vitor Pereira, who probably deserved more backing after his end of the season last year. He was in the pub all the time, doing the pints for points, etc. That feels like a long time ago now.
Yeah.
It does, yeah, absolutely. And so I was at that Arsenal game on Saturday, and that was impressive organisation from them, a good away performance in terms of keeping yourself in the game and then throwing everything at it in the last few minutes. And they'll be absolutely gutted that they didn't get a point from that game in the end. But in normal games, when they're not playing the best team in the country, they just don't seem to offer the threat they need to. They can't keep the goals out at the other end, and they're at a point now where they're very likely to be in a battle to just avoid Derby's lowest ever score for the second year in a row. That record is under threat, isn't it? But yeah, you're right. It's been a long time coming. Talk about sort of maybe the decline at West Ham setting in. Well, it's been setting in at Wolves for some time now, I think, and unfortunately, it looks like a completely irretrievable position they're already in, and we're not even at Christmas.
The players they bought as well. You see clubs like Bournemouth signing players from FC Porto over the last few years, or Juventus. Like Wolves just haven't brought in proven quality for a long time now. No, there's obviously talent there. Like Arteta had a very good time over in Belgium, but was he a nailed-on success story in the Premier League? Like they needed someone to replace Cunha, and they've gone with. They signed him from Atletico Madrid. He played for RB Leipzig, and then they signed someone that's played in Belgium. They're just not replacing quality with anywhere close to the same quality.
Well, yeah, and that shows in the kind of minutes that have been given to players. They spent 140 million euros in the summer. They actually spent more money than they brought in sales, which is like mad, given that they had Cunha going to Man United and Aït-Nouri going to Man City. But Orkadore and Fer Lopez, I think they came in for around £50 million combined. They've started 4 games between them, and that's not. They haven't been injured or anything. They're just not trusted in that side. Strand Larsen, his form. I think I think he's getting on the end of fewer chances than Pascal Struijk at Leeds. And that's not just down to Strand Larsen, but you look at that you look at the forward line around Strand Larsen. It's like that just isn't a Premier League forward line. And yet you've got Andre and Joao Gomez in there who will no doubt go to Europa League or Champions League level clubs when Wolves get relegated in the summer. there are spots of real quality in that Wolves team. Agbadou at the back as well. What a signing he was last January. But like the overall recruitment around them has been absolutely woeful. We saw what was it, Jeff Shee, the CEO, last week, kind of being like, oh yeah, maybe we didn't.
Yeah, maybe we let too many players go. Yes,
Yeah.
Jeff. Yes, Jeff.
Maybe you did.
And I think the danger is that any progress that Rob Edwards starts to bring in, or that we're seeing from him in his time in charge, if you keep losing every week, it just gets to the players, doesn't it? You can keep trying and bring enthusiasm, which they did at the Emirates, but it's like you keep doing that every week. May's a long time away, to keep up those energy levels.
But then that level of performance against Arsenal,
and you still
lose. Score an equaliser in the 90th minute or whatever it was, and still lose.
Yeah.
What does that do for morale?
And that's the thing, because I think the thinking behind Edwards' appointment was probably that, it looks likely we're going to get relegated this season. He is someone who could get here. He's got a proven record of getting teams, up to the top of the Championship. So at least there's that. But you bring him in at this point of the season, keep losing. It's like, I don't know, like is morale going to be so low by the start of next season that you're looking at a Wolves team that are going to struggle actually to have that character to challenge at the top of the Championship, where we know it's so difficult.
I think it's got to be an F. To be honest, to be fair to the rest of the ratings, I think it's more on the club than the players. But I think it's got to be an F. Guys, those were our ratings for every Premier League club at the start of this season. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let us know where we were wrong, where we were right, whether you'd give out any more E's, D's, whether we were too generous, whether Sunderland shouldn't be an A-star. I think they should be. But thank you very much to Sky Sports' senior football journalist, Pete Smith.
Thanks, Dougie.
As ever, thanks very much to Mikey, and we'll catch you soon. Bye-bye. Have a great Christmas too. Bye.